This is RSM100 Lecture 101 Group 12. The contemporary issue will include the gender inequality, the aging population, social media and ethics, the marketing strategy and the cultural difference, public health and finance.
So our first topic is gender inequality, and Africa will be taking a region to demonstrate gender inequality, which is a significant issue in today's society. Firstly, Motley indicate that most women in Africa undertake greatly more unpaid work than men in North Africa. Women typically perform 5 to 6 times as much work, or 5 to 6 hours for every hour of unpaid work performed by men. In other words, the workload is distributed unequally to all individuals who are expected to take on more work only because they are female. According to Motley, the proportion of women in Africa is obtaining high quality and skilled jobs is extremely narrow, as the majority of the work they perform is low paying and usually just to survive. The vast number of women play the role of housewives, which is a type of unpaid work, and their major responsibilities are care for children, seniors, and housekeeping. To be more specific, women are largely limited in types of occupations they wish to pursue. For instance, some high-tech jobs are rarely performed by them, but rather they tend to perform relatively basic tasks, indicating that gender inequality in most Africa region is reflected in the work of the public.
Second topic is aging population in Japan. Japan has one of the world's largest economies and is dealing with aging population to an unprecedented extent. According to Statista.com, about 30% of Japanese is age 65 or older and expected to rise to around 38% by next decade. The two factors that impact increasing population of Japanese is slower population growth and a higher life expectancy. With this, the annual GDP growth is expected to fall by around 1% due to their fast aging and shrinking labor force. Having a shrinking labor force can impact their economy in both the micro and macro levels. Labor force and production are affected the most because more people are leaving the labor force than entering. This would increase wages and make production costs higher, and according to Chapter 3 of Contemporary Business, this would shift the supply curve leftward and increase prices. On the other hand, aging population can cause new opportunities and solutions for firms which can be beneficial in the long run. To solve the problem of aging population, firms can outsource their production, which will help reduce costs. According to Chapter 2 of Contemporary Business, companies can provide incentives so that workers can retire at an older age. With these problems, firms will also start to introduce flexible work plans for workers who have caretaking responsibilities, which could help them retain workers in their companies. Lastly, aging population can create opportunities for entrepreneurs to create new goods and services, and it could lead their path to help them become successful.
Our third topic is on ethics and social responsibility. More specifically, I will be discussing the war between Meta and Canadian media companies over advertising revenue. This is because of a proposed Bill C-18, which if approved will take billions of dollars in advertising revenue away from Meta and will give them to the Canadian media companies if their articles are posted on Meta's platforms. Now, as a result of this, Meta threatens to block and restrict any articles coming from Canadian media companies, as they believe it will be the more profitable choice. In Lecture 5 of RSM100, we discussed businesses' social responsibilities towards consumers and investors. Now, why Meta blocking any articles from Canadian media companies could be an ethical choice is because it fulfills their right to investors to make sure that their shares become as profitable as possible. Now, why this could be an unethical choice is because it destroys the private consumer's right to choose what they want to be in the platform, and it also means that the companies, or Canadian media companies, will not have an effective service to promote any of their articles.
On the first issue, I will talk about the international company operating the foreign market. Nordstrom is a retail enterprise that specializes in offering a wide range of products, including clothing, accessories, and cosmetics. In the early March, Nordstrom announced that they plan to shut down all of their apartment stores in Canada. The closure is expected to result in the loss of jobs for around 2,500 employees, with the Canadian store set to cease operating by late June. One reason for Nordstrom failure was that the Nordstrom entered the Canadian market very quickly, but there were too many stores in Canada, especially in Toronto. Eric Nordstrom, the CEO of the Nordstrom, pointed out that they had no satisfactory profit was achieved, and this problem was further exacerbated by the COVID-19. Another significant factor is that Nordstrom, being an international company, has not adequately adapted to the various markets and tailored its strategy to cater to the preference and habit of the customer from different countries. This also can connect back to one of our course content, international business culture. For instance, although Nordstrom is renowned for its exceptional customer service in the States, but this service model has not enabled the companies to establish their customer loyalty among the Canadian consumer. In conclusion, international corporations should prioritize adopting their local strategies and accommodating cultural difference when conducting overseas business.
Recently, in February, there has been an incident of a train derail and leaking toxic chemicals onto the earth. Among the chemicals spilled onto the floor, there has been one chemical called vinyl chloride, which is extremely dangerous for humans in any exposure. It may cause cancer and various other effects. The company's solution to the spill was to burn up the chemical, which the vinyl chloride burning up in the air will result in 3 different kinds of chemicals, 2 of which is harmful for human, but less harmful compared to the original vinyl chloride. However, vinyl chloride may have not fully burned up and have ascended along with the smoke, may have caused dangerous effects to humans and animals around. Areas around West Palestine was contaminated by this chemical, but the company just decided to give $25,000 to resettle some people in the area to a temporary shelter, which is way less than the amount they used to support politicians. The reaction of the company is questionable if they really felt guilty for what they have done, or if they did not care about lives and environments. Furthermore, in the future, pollutions in the air may have long-lasting effects to people's health and animals' health all around Ohio and other cities nearby.
On Friday, March 10th, Silicon Valley Bank, a top 20 American commercial bank establishment and a financer of almost half the U.S. venture-backed technology and healthcare companies with over $200 billion in total assets, collapsed, and control was assumed by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. In short, to describe what happened, Silicon Valley Bank encountered a typical bank run. After news broke that their long-term treasury bonds resulted in massive losses and that the bank was selling securities at losses in order to raise cash for their liquidity needs, clients and investors panicked, withdrawing over $40 billion within a 24-hour period. In just 36 hours, Silicon Valley Bank had crumbled, clocking the second biggest bank failure in U.S. history. So what were the drivers behind their massive collapse, and what internal or external factors allowed for this monumental crash? While there are many factors that can be pointed to, a main contributor was their management, or a lack thereof. For a portion of 2022, Silicon Valley Bank didn't have a chief risk officer, a circumstance that definitely reflects poorly given their current situation. For a financial blunder to occur as swiftly and discreetly as theirs did alludes to a lack of prioritizing effective strategic management and a lack of contingent planning. When asked about Silicon Valley Bank, Denny Moses, investor who predicted the 2008 crisis and featured in the book and film The Big Short, was quoted by saying, "It's just bad risk management, complete and utter bad risk management on part of the Silicon Valley Bank." Additionally, after the fallout, Silicon Valley Bank was accused of prioritizing ESG-driven investing rather than ensuring sound and safe financial management. However, their social justice and ESG policies were not very dissimilar to other banks or crucial in their downfall. And ultimately, these claims lead back to poor management on behalf of Silicon Valley Bank's leadership.